Okay, so as far as like being a travel pair, is there any benefits, like main benefits you guys would say for people that are considering traveling as a pair?
Definitely the pros of traveling as a pair is you're always going to have an adventure buddy. So, a lot of travelers say that they get lonely and it's a little bit hard to just up and move your life to a new place where you don't know anybody. So it decreases that like kind of scary factor of moving to a new place and not knowing anybody. You're always going to have a friend to do things with on the weekends. I think it makes the whole process a little easier in that regard of companionship. So overall, we love it. And I don't know if I personally would have done travel therapy by myself without a partner.
And then another benefit is, like you said, if you find housing that's pretty reasonable for two people and you're each making a travel therapy salary or pay, you can save a lot of money that way versus like an individual person doesn't have anyone to split costs with. So that's definitely a benefit there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And then is there any like major obstacles you guys have found with traveling as a pair?
I'd say the biggest thing is the finding two jobs together. That can definitely be harder and it can limit your options more as a pair.
Yeah.
But, you just take the good with the bad, because I know that there's a lot of people like us that they're either going to travel with a partner or they're not going to travel at all. Most people don't really have that choice, so you just kind of take the good with the bad. Whereas if there's we've talked to some people who are just thinking about traveling like with a friend or a classmate or somebody, and they may have a choice to decide whether it's the right decision for them to try to look for jobs together or if they should just go solo. And so that's something to take into account if you really have the option to go solo and you really want specific locations and specific settings, and maybe you're only going to plan to travel for a couple of years, so you really just have like that bucket list of like, I want that California job and I want that Hawaii job. You may be better off to go solo, but again, like I think most pairs are like us, they're just either going to do it together or they're not. So you just kind of figure out the job part.
Yeah, and another downside is housing can be cheaper if you split costs, but it can also be harder to find, because we've had situations where like specifically earlier in our career where we wanted to save costs as much as possible, we were thinking about renting a room in a house or like a in-law suite type thing. And, sometimes people don't want two people in a room. They just want one person. So we ran into situations where we're like, oh man, this would be a great place to stay. And then we talked to them and they're like, well, I'm not looking for a couple. I just want one person. So there's situations like that where housing can be harder to find.
Right. And that was when, we mostly traveled in an RV, but we have done some assignments where we rented a place. So in some ways, it can be harder to find housing for two, especially if you, as a solo traveler, are willing to rent a room in a house or something like that. You can usually find cheaper and easier housing. But then again, there are some solo travelers that don't want to do that either, and they'd be looking for a one-bedroom apartment anyway.
Yeah.
Just pros and cons there and different things to think about. One other thing it's a pro, but it's a con. Like, we always have each other when we're on assignment, but I also feel like compared to some travelers, we don't necessarily integrate with like our work coworkers, and make friends as well, because I think that most of our coworkers just assume, oh, they have each other, they're doing their own thing on the weekend. Whereas I'll hear from a lot of solo travelers that they get invited to go do things and they meet people and they're always on the weekend like finding new friends. Whereas I feel like we kind of fly solo.
Yeah, as a solo traveler, you're kind of forced outside of your comfort zone, whereas we can easily just fall back on like, well, we'll hang out together, watch movies, we'll go eat dinner, like we always have each other. So it's a pro and a con. Like it's nice to have someone always, but it's also, sometimes you kind of want to get outside your comfort zone and meet other people. And you can do that as a pair, it's just a little bit more difficult.